This video is to discuss an alternate way to look at percent of change. In other words, finding tax, tip, discount, commission, things like that. So the percent of change is the ratio of the amount of increase or decrease to the original amount. So the steps is that you're going to find the difference between the original and the new amount, and you're going to set up a proportion. The change or that difference between the original and the new is going to be a certain percentage of that original amount. And that's what we call the percent of change. So when we look at a problem, if we have the original amount is $10 and the new amount is $8, say you wanted to know how much that changed as a percent. You would first of all need to find out how much it changed by subtracting that to get the amount of change. The amount of change out of the original amount is what percent out of 100? That's how you set up your proportion. From there, you cross multiply and divide after getting your multiplication equation to figure out that it changed by 20%. And it went down, so it's a decrease. Let's try another one. So say we started at 644 cars and we went to 588. Well, from 644 to 588, we went down by 56 cars. So I want to know 56 out of the original amount is what percent out of 100? So then I'm going to cross multiply, and I'm going to do this in my calculator so it's a little bit quicker for you. And then divide. That's going to give me that x is 8.69 ... We're going to round to the nearest whole number, so this tells me to round up. So this is about 9% sales. And that is, of course, a decrease because we're going down. So one situation where you might have to use this is if you, as a car owner, dealership owner, were trying to figure out how much you had sold of your inventory. Well, if your inventory started at 644 and went to 588, that means you had 9% sales over a certain amount of time. Say you're looking for the percentage that your mileage increased. If you went from 72 to 119, that's a change of 47. So 47 is what percent of my original? Well, when I cross multiply and divide, it's about 65% increase. The next problem says if in 1950 the minimum hourly wage for non-farmer workers was 75 cents an hour. By 2000, the minimum hourly wage was $5.15 per hour. We want to find the percent of increase. Well, before we can find out what the percent of increase was, we need to figure out how much it actually did increase. So if I subtract those values, that's going to tell me that it went up by $4.40. So for $4.40 out of the original amount is what percent increase? So when we cross multiply and divide, we're going to get that this was 587, about, I'm rounding, percent increase. Okay, so that should kind of make sense because 75 cents is so much smaller than 5.15. So if it went up by that amount, it went up by more than 100%, because 100% would be if it increased by 75 cents to $1.50. This says it's 587%, so it's increased much more than that. In 1985, there were 824 easy listening radio stations. 6 years later, there was 299. We're going to find the percent of change. So first, we're going to find the amount that it changed, which is going to give us 525. 525 is what percent of the original 824. When I cross multiply and divide, that's going to give me 63.7 ... So what is that percentage? This tells me to go up. So it's about a 64%. And this one's a decrease because my station number went down. The last problem is talking about a pair of boots that is $195 and it being discounted by 40%. So first of all, we want to know how much the price decreases. Well, originally they were $195. I don't know how much they decrease by, but I do know that they decrease by 40%, which percents are always out of 100. So I'm going to cross multiply and divide, and that's going to tell me that my decrease to $78. This right here is a percent of change. All that I've done is I've put in my percent there since I don't have my discounted amount. So I've set up my proportion just a little bit differently. So if my price decreased by 78%, or sorry, that's not a percent, by $78, and it was originally $195, I'm going to subtract those values to come up with my sale price, because my sale price should be less than my original. So if originally my price was $400, I need to figure out the new price. I can't find out the new price until I figure out what that percent increase is. So 25% of my original amount is what I'm looking for. So when I cross multiply and divide, I'm going to get that my price increased by 100. Well, if it was originally 400 and it increased by 100, that makes my new price 500. Same thing over here. My original price is 380. I know that it went down by 15%, but I have no idea what 15% is. So I'm going to cross multiply and then divide. And that's going to tell me that 15% is 57 cents. That was a decrease. So I'm going to take my 380 and subtract 57 cents from it. So my new price is $3.23. So that's all we have on this particular lesson. Stay tuned for tax, tip, and discount lessons.